Once you've completed a local installation of the MySQL client, or really any local client, then you're going to want to use that to connect to your cloud-based instance. So again, from our documentation site here, you can just simply click on connecting to instances and connecting using the MySQL client. Now, there are three options, and in this demonstration, we will see connecting without SSL. Later on, we'll see connecting with SSL, and we'll also touch on connecting over IP version 6. But before we come to that, let's just scroll down a little bit here, and of course, make sure that you have your instance ready to accept these connections. So assign an IP address to the instance. Now you get an IP version 6 address by default. And if you want to use that, that's perfectly fine. But if you want, you can assign an IP version 4, but you do have to request that if you haven't already. Set a root password, again, if you haven't already. My preference is to create my own user for this purpose rather than using the root account. I just prefer to use a custom user, if you will, for day-to-day administrative tasks instead of using root. But you certainly can. But if you're going to use root, make sure you set a password, and we'll see that in a moment as well. And then, of course, grant access to your instance. So you have to be able to access it with respect to the IP address, the authorized networks, things like that. So let's just quickly go back to the instance and review the configuration. Now, for starters, there's the IP version 6 address that you get automatically. There's the IP version 4 address, and I requested that when I created the instance in the first place. If you don't yet have one, simply click Manage, and you can obtain an IP version 4 address. Just recall that you do have to pay for the IP version 4 address. It's not very much, but you do have to pay for it. Now, you can then go to your access control and ensure that your network configuration is all proper in terms of what is authorized to connect to the instance. And then, of course, under users, this is where you can either create a new user and specify from which host they can connect, and I have mine set up from any host, or you can just make sure that you have a root password here. So just click on the ellipses and set the password for the root at localhost at least. That's the one that's used by default. Under SSL, since we are going to use an unsecured connection for this demonstration,